because we can basically find research that says anything now. How do you parse out facts from things that are just like false or maybe bought, jeopardized, so forth?
Yeah, I mean the discernment on what research to believe and what not, that's a bit tricky, right? And that's where again, I think the guidance from advisors around you who maybe have gotten to a place where they can help you discern that, right? So the right medical practitioner or researcher. So you can go to PubMed and yeah, there's a lot of information, but you got to look at who authored the study. Was it funded by the pharmaceutical industry or not? So again, to try to find really in the truly independent, meaningful research, that can be challenging. And I'll be honest, I didn't spend hours and hours doing that research. So I have relied on opinions of people who I respect, who I know don't have an agenda, and so again, and everything that I personally do, it's always from the standpoint of root cause, root cause, root cause. What does the research say with respect to root cause? And I'd be lying to you if I said, okay, hey, I know the root cause of autism. That'd be an idiotic thing for anyone to say. But, I could never say that to you. But what I can say is that, hey, there's some very likely suspects that we can point to say this. There may be something here in terms of what is driving the autism epidemic, and translating into that. And again, we don't have to talk about any of them. I'll just spitball a whole bunch of real strong candidates, right? So we do have things like EMF exposure and how much more that is, particularly if you go back to the inflection point, when things really started to turn. The EMF exposure that our kids are susceptible, huge. The chemicals and pesticides and all the toxins in the air that are in the cord blood, of these children is massive. So you can just look at as a root cause the whole chemical onslaught, how much toxic, like these kids are born with their toxin cup already pretty filled. So you can look and say that's a cause. You can look at the vaccine schedule in terms of metals or whatever the case may be. You can look at that. You can look at glyphosate in terms of the glyphosate and how insidious that is, how that wrecks the gut health. And so I could keep going on and on. There's a lot of things that you can point to that say, hey, that might be a big contributing root cause to how different the environment is now. And I think as a parent, it's just about you understanding those factors. And again, getting tuned in with, hey, well, what's relevant for my child? Let me try to focus on that root cause. Like Dr. William Parker was on the podcast a couple months ago before the big announcement from HHS about Tylenol. And, he's 100% convinced that Tylenol, consumption, particularly by the mother, during pregnancy, he's convinced that's a massive, and he doesn't think that's a contributing factor. He feels like that's really a key root cause. And then, of course, if that's true, the question is, well, what do we do about it? Well, there's ways that you can support your child if that did contribute to toxicity, and is in some way a root cause for what's going on with your child. But again, every parent can look at their unique situation and say, hey, I feel like these root causes are contributing factors. Now let me come up with a plan to take actions that might help with that knowledge that might be at the root of why my child is where they are right